Today I'll be creating a card using the Majestic Bouquet stamp, and I'll be coloring the flowers in two-tone colors. Hi everyone, welcome to Creative Coloring with Erum. I will be watercoloring today to create two-tone florals, and to add a bit of oomph to the card, I will be heat embossing the images in rose gold. As I mentioned, I will be using the Majestic Bouquet stamp. This is a huge stamp and both the flowers plus the leaves are so gorgeous. I already went ahead and heat embossed several images onto watercolor paper in rose gold embossing powder. This is a low quality watercolor paper that I'm using, so you will see that I will have a bit of trouble coloring the florals. If you are following or coloring along with me, please use the Altenew watercolor cardstocks as they are absolutely amazing. The coloring process will be much faster and easier if you do use the Altenew watercolor cardstocks. So I'll apply water to the image, but I'll leave the center portion out. I'll color this after I've colored the outer petals. So I've divided my flower into two sections basically. As you can see, the paper I'm using has absorbed all the water. This paper is definitely not suited for loose watercolor. But I have locked my watercolor cardstock in my other room and I cannot find the keys right now. I think my mother took them by mistake and I needed to film this right away. So this was the only one available. I will apply cotton candy pigment from the 36 pan watercolor set and apply it all over the outer curled petals. Once the first color wash is done, I'll use my heat tool to dry the image a bit. You will probably not have to do this if you are using the Altenew watercolor cardstock, because I usually do not dry so much between layers when I'm doing loose watercolor and also using the Altenew watercolor cardstock. Then I'll use concentrated pigment of cotton candy near the flower center or the connecting points just to add a bit of depth. This will also enhance the individual petals as I will keep adding layers of watercolor pigment here, keeping the tips of the flower petals a bit lighter. To make this more dark, I'll add coral berry and diffuse it out a bit. Next, I'll add crimson. This is going to be really minimal, just a dot to add depth. And once I'm done, I'll add a bit of concentrated pigment by mixing the colors that I have used and add it in a way to distinguish between petals. And then I'll move to the center portion. Okay, after I've added the concentrated pigment, I'm going to leave it as is and not going to dry the petals. Why am I doing this? It's because I wanted the pigment to diffuse on its own without me adding stippling or anything right now, because I will come back to this again later after I'm done with the center portion. Now I'll start by applying water. Then I'll add a very bright yellow pigment. Then I'll add a bit of light green pigment to this. Now if you want, you can dry this before adding the pink pigment, but I don't want to, as I want the pigment to look blended. The pink and green when mixed will become brown, so I'm very careful not to mix them on my own, but instead let them diffuse a bit on their own. Let the water do all the work. So in this way, it's not going to mix everywhere, but just in some places. I leave this for a bit and move back to the outer petals. Because this is cotton candy and the other one is a lighter green, this is not going to make a very prominent brown. It's going to make a softer color, more towards a dusky pinky brown shade, espresso color. It's not going to look that bad. I leave this for a bit and move back to the outer petals, where I'll add more pigmented color to add more depth. I'll keep doing this till I'm satisfied. I'll also add a touch of grapevine for more depth. Now this is completely up to you how many dark shades you want to add for depth or how many colors you want to add, like for instance, I have added just 2 tones or 3 tones maximum. The green and yellow falls in the same category right now because I'm using such close shades of green and yellow. But if you want, you can add another color to this, like orange, a lighter orange, not a very bright one that is close to the yellow, or just use a warmer yellow to give a 3-tone look to the flower. Okay, so for the second flower, I will apply water, then the same yellow pigment to the area that's closer to the flower center. And at the tips, I'll apply cotton candy. I'll also try to diffuse this a bit. This is just the first layer of color. I'll repeat the same with all the other petals. I'll also take a bit of crimson and add it to the tips of the petal while they're still wet so that they blend on their own. When I'm done with the petals, I'll dry the image and move on to the flower center. After applying water, I'll add green plus yellow pigment to the base of these petals. While I'm adding the green here on the second flower, I thought I could use some of it on the first flower too, so I'll start adding it as stippling. After this, I'll add a bit of yellow to the few of the tips of the petals for the first flower, just so that there's a uniform look between the 2 flowers and they match. I'll keep working on the green bit of the second flower. I'll also add darker green shade like forest glades and a little bit of evergreen. Then I'll add pink, being very careful. I'll start this from the tip and move towards the green. I've not waited for the green bit to dry, so even if it mixes at some points on some petals, I don't have a problem with that really, but I'll try to be a little careful. Then I'll move back to the open petals and add darker pink pigment. For the leaf, I'll start by adding a light green color to the center and diffuse it out as I move towards the edge of the leaf. Then I will add forest glades on the midrib and diffuse it out. I'll repeat this step till I'm happy with the depth I've achieved. Now for this, you can dry between the layers. The more you dry between the layers, the more layers you can build. Even if you keep adding darker pigment to the wet area, it's going to diffuse. So if you want a more prominent look, you should definitely dry between layers. I'll also add the darkest green I have, which is evergreen, for additional depth. Once the images are dry, I'll use the coordinating dies to die cut them and then arrange them on my grid mat. I'll remove the flowers, then add green splatters onto my leaves while they're still on the mat, as I don't want to lose the arrangement. Once the splatters are dry, I will use a washi tape to secure them. You can also use your press and seal too. On spicy yogurt cardstock, I'll apply water with a flat brush. And I'm randomly applying water, just trying to cover a bit of area where my floral arrangement is going to go. While it's still wet, I'll add splatters of darker green. And that's just a DIY mask, as I don't want my splatters everywhere, especially on the corners. I just want them on the base where my flowers are going to go. So they're just visible from under the floral arrangement, peeking through. So that now they look like there's a lot of splatters because they are, but then you're not going to see them. Once the panel is dry, I'll adhere the leaves with foam tape and then remove the washi tape and then adhere the flowers. I forgot to add the black splatters, so I'll just avoid the flowers a little bit and add the splatters. Then I'll also add gold splatters from the metallic 14 pan set because they add so much shine to the project and it looks absolutely wonderful in person. I'll then pop my sentiment and a few satin gold sequins to complete my card. The 36 pan has more muted tones to work with if you want to create a pretty looking floral card. You can even mix and use the lighter concentration from the Artist 24 pan set, but when I don't have time to mix and custom shades and I'm looking for muted tones, 36 pan is the one I go for. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye!